There we go.
Hi, now I can hear you.
Yeah, it took me a minute. I couldn't hear you. Your lips were moving.
Yeah, so we'll wait just a minute or two, but this is part 2, and I'm going to kind of review what we talked about last week, but get into a couple other things that I have, and then I want to hear from you guys as far as what you do to wind down in the evening. I've got a couple people that said they were going to participate. A lot of people that I talked to today said today's been it's going to be really busy, but they're going to watch the replay. So we'll see. We'll see
Gotcha.
what happens. So we'll just wait. Oh, what time is it? We'll wait another minute or so, and then we'll just get started.
Okay.
So cool. Good. How was your weekend?
Not bad.
Yeah.
Actually.
Good.
Yeah, I had to refrain from working out because
Yeah.
my body says, "Oh, you haven't." So I had to just be content with my walk and get my steps in. So
Yep, because you do have to let that body rest when you feel like you can't. It's really important that you do, because that's where it's at, and that's why we're going to talk a little bit more about sleep and circadian rhythm and how everybody's circadian rhythm is a little bit different, and what controls that, and how we can. We talked a lot about how we can get ourselves ready to sleep at night. We'll talk a little bit more about can't even talk here. What happens to our hormones when we don't get enough sleep? And that kind of stuff too. So we'll get a little bit into that as well. So it'll be good. Very good.
the hormones and the scales are in cahoots. What do you think?
Yes, I think so. Sometimes it is. For sure. Yeah. I don't expect this to be super long today. I probably won't even go the 45 minutes unless we get a lot of questions and things like that. So, but you know what? Maybe we'll just go ahead and get started just for the sake of time. It's a little bit after 6, but, and just obviously stop me if you have a question or anything like that. So we'll just make it very informal like they always are. So cool. Well, we talked last week a lot about sleep and good ways to wind down at the end of the night to try and get ourselves, quieted down, whether that's meditation, journaling, not being on social media, putting that phone down, all of that kind of stuff. Because, we are attached to our phones. That's our lives. And we tend to catch up at night, which a lot of us do. In fact, I find myself, I do the same thing. So I have to remind myself to put it down. So, but we really all live according to a circadian rhythm. You've probably heard that before. It's our 24-hour internal clock that really controls our body's functions. And it changes throughout the day. It works cognitively with us. It's our metabolism it controls. Our sleep-wake cycle, that's where we know it mainly from, is the sleep-wake cycle, the circadian rhythm, but lots of other functions all follow a certain rhythm. It's kind of like your organization throughout the day. You get up from bed, you brush your teeth, you weigh yourself, whatever it is for that routine, that's kind of like your circadian rhythm. So, but the hypothalamus is in charge of that. That's like our master clock. Oh, Min's coming in. I'm going to admit her right away here. So we have that master clock, and that's in our hypothalamus, which is of course in our brain. And that is triggered by light and darkness, physical activity, mealtime schedule, and things like that. So that's how our body is functioned. It's the circadian rhythm, and it's the hypothalamus. And so the hypothalamus is controlled through hormonal signals. So there's a lot going on up in that brain. And one of them is cortisol. That's that stress hormone that we talk about. And that cycles up and down throughout the day. And then there's another hormone, which is an ACTH hormone. And those maintain the circadian rhythm. Mm-hmm. And they need to be healthy because our circadian rhythm is essential for our general health. So if we are not in sync, that circadian rhythm, that's when we have the inconsistency with our eating patterns, our sleeping patterns, and all of that. And that's when our body is at risk for diseases, all that stuff, the diabetes, all the things that can happen to us when we're not getting enough sleep. So, so not getting that sleep affects the physical and mental well-being. We talked a lot about that last week. So what makes us get sleepy throughout the day? Well, the sunlight stops a pineal gland, it's called, and that's the gland that produces that melatonin. That's that sleep-inducing hormone. And that is what we talked about last week too, where melatonin decreases as we age. And so that's why some of us take melatonin to help us sleep, right? So that's that gland that produces melatonin, which is the sleep-inducing hormone. Another sleep-causing chemical is called adenosine, and that increases during the day in parts of the brain that control wakefulness. So as it gets dark, melatonin goes up. So that's that sleep hormone, and enough of that adenosine accumulates in the brain to help us get sleepy. So we need those two things to be really, really healthy. So what do we do as humans? Because we work all the time, we take in caffeine, right? And so what caffeine does is it blocks the adenosine receptors. And so that's why it's good to not have caffeine after 1 p.m. in the afternoon. And a lot of us do, because we have that tired period in that early afternoon. And that blocks that adenosine receptors. So you're not going to be getting sleepy. When you're sleeping, the adenosine levels go back down, the cortisol goes back down, et cetera, et cetera. So really, sleep does affect your overall health, and that is through that hormonal control. So we talked about this too, and it's more of a review, but inadequate sleep is associated with a lot of health problems. So not getting enough sleep. In the short term, you get tired, right? You're really fatigued. Your memory is bad. You're not learning, you're not productive, you get crabby and irritable. And also you're more apt to get sick if you're not getting enough sleep. So your immune function goes down. So it's really important that we keep those hormones healthy too. You're even more susceptible to getting a cold or flu. I don't know if you ever experienced this, but if I don't sleep well during the night, I feel like my throat's scratchy during the day, and I start to feel like, oh, am I getting sick? And yeah. And so that's your body's telling, it is. And so that's your body telling you, hey, you need to get some rest, or you will get sick. So, and of course, for the short term sometimes ends up being the long term. And that's when things can go, as my dad would say, to hell in a handbasket. I'm not sure what that means, but that's what he would say, right? So your reduce of developing obesity, type 2 diabetes, all of that will happen because you're not getting that sleep. It leads to high blood pressure, all of that. So depression, anxiety. So if you aren't sleeping well, you're more apt to feel anxious about things because you're tired, you're fatigued, you don't have that control. And then if all those health conditions keep coming and coming because we're not getting enough sleep, because either we're working too much, or we're on social media, or we're watching too much TV, or whatever it is, that's going to lower our life expectancy. And so our quality of life is going to go down, but then we're not going to live very long either. And we all know that that's why we're doing what we're doing, is we want to live longer, but healthier at the same time. So another thing, you probably know this, but there's sleep differences in men versus women. So we have shorter circadian rhythms than a man does. So we tend to want to go to bed earlier than men. I can honestly say that I do want to go to bed a little bit earlier and wake up earlier than men. Now I'm different. I would rather sleep. My husband's up early, but we like to sleep longer. We need to sleep longer. And women have overall better sleep efficiency than men do, which is good. So that's kind of nice. So the other thing that does affect sleep, and we all know this, that hormone cycles affect sleep between men and women. So menstrual cycle affects sleep, menopause can affect sleep patterns, and that's a whole nother topic about menopause. But that can lead to increased insomnia and frequent waking up, especially with hot flashes and things like that. We are waking ourselves up, we're sweaty, then we get cold, and it's a hot mess. No pun intended, I know. I bet Lynn would agree. She's on the phone, I just can't see her. She's hiding.
Well, I didn't know. Did you sharing?
Oh, I'm glad you're here. I'm glad. You can certainly stay muted. That's absolutely fine. I appreciate that. If you have any questions, just jump on in and ask.
I've got my mom right here.
Oh, good. Yeah, I understand. So, it's women have a 40% higher risk for insomnia than men, and it is related to all those hormonal changes that we go through. Because you think about it, pregnancy. Remember, you can't sleep during pregnancy either because you're uncomfortable. You're rolling around. It's the baby's moving, all of that. So there's a lot of things that affect us differently than men. Now, however, men, they can have some problems too with their sleep. Obviously, their sleeping patterns can lead to obesity, hypertension, glucose intolerance, just like it is for women. So, and it can also lead to low testosterone in men. So treatment options are sleep management. And we talked a little bit about last week about how we can improve that. And sometimes if you have like conditions like sleep apnea, which it can be related to obesity, but not always, there's ways to get treatment for that, those sleep apnea machines, sometimes surgeries and things like that. So that can reduce your risk for chronic diseases too, if you have those types of issues. And you don't always have to be obese to have sleep apnea. It can be just if you're clenching a lot at night, if your tongue falls back, it's a lot of your neck structures and how you're built that can cause that. I mean, super skinny people have sleep apnea. So it's just one of those things. And sometimes you just have to have treatment with that. So there's more than this, but I'm going to talk about 6 things that happen to your hormones when you don't get enough sleep. So you're feeling tired. That's one consequence, like you're just fatigued and you don't feel very good. And it affects your whole body functions. And we talked a lot about that. Stress hormones, you feel hungrier, your insulin levels are off track, your energy levels, all of that. And it's a vicious cycle. It's kind of like what came first, right? Is it the obesity that's leading to the sleep? Is it the sleep adding to the obesity? Sometimes it's hard to figure that out. But sleep deprivation in and of itself has an effect on that master hormone system that we talked about, right? And it also has an effect on our nervous system. It's our brain. The brain controls our breathing. It controls a lot of stuff. So, and remember, you have your own circadian rhythm. So your natural sleep-wake cycle. And so that's going to help regulate your body. You just have to listen to it and listen to what your body tells you, right? So if you're tired, go to bed. Don't just lay on the couch and fall asleep, because you're not going to sleep well. You're going to wake up at 2 a.m. and then you're going to go to bed and you're going to lay there awake. Does that sound familiar? Right. Or you're going to sleep upright in a chair and you're going to be all kinked over and you're going to wake up and you're going to have pain in your upper back and you're going to be miserable, and then you're not going to feel like working out. And, it just goes on and on and on, and you're up and down and you're up and down. So I'm sure that rings a bell because it happens to all of us, right? Yeah. Right. So, we want those hormones functioning effectively and properly in our bodies, because it regulates so much more than even that. It's our blood pressure, it's our temperature, it's blood sugar levels, it's how our digestive system is working, and getting that proper sleep is going to make sure everything functions effectively, including those hormones. So this is what sleep deprivation affects as hormones. It affects your insulin. We talked a little bit about that. The lack of sleep increases your adrenal stress and your cellular resistance to insulin, right? So that's where we end up with the type 2 diabetes. This has nothing to do with type 1. Type 1 is very different. You can't control that. You can't prevent that from happening. Type 2, you can definitely prevent that from happening. And so when you have abnormalities in your insulin, you're not going to process glucose very well, right? And so that's what happens there. So sleep deprivation affects insulin. The next thing it can do is it increases your thyroid hormone and how your thyroid's functioning. So it increases TSH. So we talk about people who have oh, I have a thyroid problem. I have a thyroid problem. Well, hopefully you've had your sleep monitored, or you're getting effective sleep, or you're working with somebody or working to try and fix that, because you can help that a little bit on your own. And when you have a high TSH, you have a lower body metabolism, right? And then that's where you have underactive thyroid with what, and then what happens? You start to gain weight, you are fatigued, you feel cold, you start losing your hair, all of that. So sleep deprivation affects insulin and affects your thyroid hormone. It also affects two other hormones, and we talked about these last week. Leptin, remember leptin, Leptin, is related to hunger. Sleep deprivation lowers the leptin levels, which can affect your appetite. So the role of leptin is to suppress your appetite, and it signals your body like, hey, stop eating. So we want more leptin. And if it's being suppressed, you're going to feel hungry. So when you're sleep deprived, what do you want to do? You want to eat so you can stay awake. So it's just this like battle. So
then you eat bread.
Right. And so like when I worked night shifts, and if you've ever worked night shifts, we would eat to stay awake. But you also had to, so you talk about circadian rhythm, that's all messed up. So any shift workers and things like that really struggle with this. So that's why, their rooms are really dark. And I remember I would sleep with the fan on, I would, all that kind of stuff, but it does lead to overeating then too. So the other hormone it affects is ghrelin. I know it sounds like it's GHRELIN, and that is an appetite hormone. That stimulates the appetite and tells us that we need to eat. So, and so while leptin levels are lowered from lack of sleep, ghrelin levels increase, making you feel even hungrier. So, so you've got both of that happening. So that's why sleep is so important. And that's why we're taking a couple parts, part 1, part 2. I'm probably going to do a part 3, although there's another topic that I might want to squeeze in there yet. But this is so important. Like I said last week, we talk about fitness and nutrition and mindset and that identity, but really the number one thing is rest and sleep.
Yes.
And I know, Jody, you get that. So if your body is feeling absolutely wiped out, you need to rest it. That doesn't mean that, though, if your body's feeling wiped out 5 days a week, you need to rest. Sometimes you do have to push yourself, but there's also like, you got to work on the sleep part and how we can fix that. And we'll talk a little bit about that too. So the other thing is it raises cortisol. So when you're sleep deprived, your body is stressed. In fact, we are so stressed all of the time. It's really a hard battle to fight. We're stressed all day. We're stressed from work. We're stressed from things going on in our life. And then we're stressed because we can't sleep. So it's a really, really tough one. So your melatonin, which we talked about, that sleep hormone, we talked about that, has to be in sync with cortisol for you to get a good night's sleep. And so if those two things are off, it makes it really, really difficult. So, so you have trouble falling asleep or staying asleep, it's one of those two things is off. And so that's why it's okay to take a little bit of melatonin to try and help that. And then at the same time, they'll work on how you can wind down at night and be consistent with it. That's hard. Yeah, right, Lynn, I know.
Ever done? Well, I'm awful. For years, that's been my New Year's resolution, to get more than 5 hours of sleep a night. Or the melatonin, can you take, like, when would you take that? That's like if you can't fall asleep, or you would take it about an hour or so before you go to bed. And you have to kind of play with it a little bit. Everybody's a little bit different. So I recommend you start low though, because if too much is not good. And too little, you might just need a little bit more. 1 milligram. I have one of, I think it's Dorothy takes 1/2 milligram, and that's all she needs. So if you're someone who hasn't taken it, try a lower dose. Like if you go in, you can get it at Walgreens or Target or whatever. You could get like the 5 milligram, but I would cut it in half. I would get the lowest to start. Okay.
And then that will help relax you. Another thing that is really helpful is magnesium. That's an electrolyte that helps. That's a smooth muscle relaxer that helps people sleep, and that's natural. We have magnesium in our body. Yeah, that's another good one. So those two things are very, very helpful.
Does it help you sleep through
Yes,
the night?
what it does, it just helps you relax. And for most people, that will help you relax. The melatonin will keep you asleep.
Okay.
But you also have to make sure that when you're tired, you got to call it quits at a certain period of time at night. It's not good for your body. It's so stressful. And so I've done this with me. I have to put everything away by 8 o'clock. Then I know I can be in bed between 10 and 10:30. And I'll read, but I read in a book, not on a Kindle or anything like that. Get rid of that light, even though they have these special little dim lights, and just and sometimes just reading, journaling is helpful. We talked about that last week too, just writing stuff and get it out of your head. And it doesn't have to be in book format and double spaced and indented, and just write your stuff down. Like if you're mad at somebody, hey, I'm like, my husband just stepped out, but if I'm mad at him, I'll just say, Dan really made me angry, or he's a jerk today. It just gets it. It's not like you're, I'd rather write it down than say it to his face, like get it out. Like Lynn, for you, you're really stressed. You have your mom. Like, I'm frustrated with my mom. Like, get it out, because you probably feel that way sometimes. It's just that kind of thing. So the melatonin is good. Not too much. I think too much can overdo it a little bit. It's not going to hurt you, but you don't need that much. Yeah. And you can find it anywhere. It's not real expensive or anything like that too. So
has anybody ever tried the breathing and visualization techniques when you're in bed to go to sleep?
So what I've done, I mean, I learned this from my husband because he struggles with sleep. I'll lay in bed and I will breathe. It doesn't have to be anything like a specific breathing pattern, but what I do is I start at the top of my head and I just take deep breaths and I relax different parts of my body all the way down, and just let my body like sink into the bed. Like gravity is no longer an issue. And then I'll roll over on my side because I'm not a back sleeper, and then I can fall asleep a little bit easier.
The other one too, cool down from yoga at the end, relaxation and deep breathing, is it's almost like you try to get the sound of your breathing will change when it hits the back of your throat. Yeah. And for me, within like 2 minutes, I'm out.
Oh,
I'm out.
Interesting. Yeah.
Interesting. Open up your sinus, your nostrils, and just smooth breath in, and the sound of it changes when you're doing it right. You're getting
sense because you're relaxed, right? Yeah. Interesting. Yeah. So there's all these different tricks, and whatever works for you. I talked to Dorothy today. I did her one-on-one, and she's been journaling and putting her phone away, and she says that's helped a lot.
Yep.
Yeah.
Good.
Yeah, that phone and computer gets us into trouble all the time. So, more reason one. Yeah.
10 o'clock and then it's midnight and I'm like, oh my God.
No, put that thing away. And we work like dogs, and we can be easily replaced in a heartbeat. Something happens to you, Lynn, and they're going to hire somebody for your position, and that's it. But that's how we're raised, right? Work hard, do your best, give 100%, all that kind of stuff. So it's hard to let that go. That's that whole who do I want to be? That's that whole identity. Do I really, in my 50s, do I really need to work that hard? They could replace me tomorrow. Look what happened with COVID.
Right.
All of that. So
they did for the position in no time.
Yeah, absolutely. You don't, what are they going to do if I don't do that? Well, I don't know. What are they going to do? They're probably not going to fire you because they're not going to find anybody.
Right.
Nobody wants to work. That's a whole nother topic, right? The last other hormones, I shouldn't say last, but the one I'm going to talk about here is the sex hormones, right? So when you're stressed, your cortisol goes up, there's less sex hormones being made. That's testosterone, estrogen, progesterone. Now, sleep deprivation lowers testosterone. So you think about a man too, it's going to lower anyway, but then if you're not sleeping, all of that lowers, right? And so low libido, low energy, can't concentrate, all of that, because you still need, sex hormones aren't just about having sex. They control a lot of things. So
Yes,
yeah, so like for me, we talk about hormone replacement therapy. So I really struggled with sleep for the longest time. And now I found out well, and of course, everybody's are women who've gone through menopause, postmenopausal, their progesterone, estrogen, and testosterone are really low. But progesterone helps you sleep. Estrogen, testosterone. So if sleep is a real struggle for you, there are options for you. And they do help. So I can attest to that. I take progesterone at night and it's like taking a sleeping pill. It's amazing. It just relaxes me and I'm out. 98% of the time. There are still those times that if there's something really stressful going on, I am awake, but no matter what I do, but for the most part, that really does help. So think about that too, because those are options for you to help with that. And then you start to have more energy and more concentration, and you just feel a lot better. So getting enough sleep is super important, right? But your hormones need to remain in balance, because that's what helps your body function. Gotcha. And so if you are struggling and you're doing all the things that we talk about, social, getting off your phone and journaling and reading and trying the deep breathing exercises and meditation and all of that, there are options for you. So we can talk about hormone replacement therapy with that. Taking sleep aids such as like all the pharmaceuticals, I don't recommend. When I was at the bedside, we give these to patients and they get all whacked out because they just they're not good for you and you become addicted to them. And and as you get older, you're taking a sleep aid or something and you're getting confused. You get out of bed and you fall down the stairs or you fall and you break your hip. And so I don't recommend that kind of stuff at all. That is like, and I'm a nurse and we gave those to patients. And like, the more that I've learned, they're just not good. I would rather have you try like magnesium and the melatonin and that kind of stuff and hormone replacement therapy than go on. I can't even think of names of them, but there's all kinds of them. Or people will take anti-anxiety medications like Xanax or Valium or that kind of stuff. That'll really whack you out too, because that's not helpful for your circadian rhythm. It needs to be a little more natural for you to get the benefits of the sleep and things like that. So, so Jody, you were talking about the breathing and things like that. Is that part of your routine?
I do that. See, I don't necessarily have trouble falling asleep.
Okay.
Sometimes I have trouble staying asleep. Yeah. I'll wake up in the middle of the night and it's like, oh, great, here we go. So I end up having to read for a little bit. Okay. Until my eyes get tired again, or, I'll turn the TV back on and set the sleep timer only because the light from it makes me close my eyes. Sure. And then it'll shut off on its own. Right. So, I mean, for the most part though, my sleep has gotten much better. I try to do a little bit I try to get my workout done in the morning, but in the evening I might do a little bit more around here, whether with the, the dumbbells or whatever, because that will tire me out. Yeah. And then when I go to bed, I find that I sleep more soundly. So it's not a full-on workout, but it's something. Yes. Yeah. If it works for you, that's great. Sometimes that can have the opposite effect too, where it hypes you up and you can't sleep. But everybody's different. I used to work out at night too, and it didn't bother me until then. I did get a little older. Then I'm like, why am I not sleeping? Oh, it's because I'm not working out till 8 o'clock. I wonder. So, you got to try different things. But Lynn, what have you tried to help you with your sleep?
I go to sleep when it's just getting to bed.
Okay.
It's getting to bed. And then, and sometimes I get woken up.
Sure.
Kind of get up. Yeah. And I kind of get up, but then I can't go back to sleep. And that's why I wondered if the melatonin would kind of help.
I think it would help you. Now, if you are you talking like you get woken up by, is it just something happening at night that you, okay. Now, so why aren't you going to bed at night?
Yeah. I don't know. I mean, by the time I get home and I And sometimes I do work sometimes, and and I pack my lunch so I can be out early, and
Sure.
it's late when I get to bed. And
are you tired when you go to bed?
Yeah, I fall asleep.
Fall
Yeah,
asleep.
I'm tired.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So you're kind of you're a busybody at night doing stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So if you,
That's not good.
yeah, well, no, I'm just trying to like give you some, help you out with some alternative things that you could try. If you're getting to bed at midnight, maybe shoot for 11. Don't go like, oh, I'm gonna get to bed at 9:30 tonight when you're normally in bed at midnight. Just shoot for an hour earlier, and do that for a week. And then if that goes real well, then maybe shoot for a little bit earlier. You might be one of these people though, that the earliest might be 10:30, and that's fine. Like for me, 10 is ultimately 9:30 would be really good. I end up, it's by 10, because by the time when I get upstairs and I take my makeup off and then it's 10 o'clock. But yeah, just shoot for that. Try and move it up. Or maybe if it's is it midnight usually? Yeah.
Yeah, at least midnight.
Yeah.
Unfortunately.
Yeah. So then maybe even
bad.
or maybe then just try a half hour, like, okay, 11:30, it's 11:30, set your alarm. I'm going up to bed, and just really because I think that's going to help you a lot. Just getting to bed at an earlier time.
And that's what I need to do.
Yeah. I mean,
like
and really,
and
really do it. Like, really just like tonight, it's not midnight, it's 11:30. You're in bed at 11:30. And then do that for a week. Don't like, okay, tomorrow it's 11, because then if something happens and you don't do it, then you're going to beat yourself up. Right. So just take it one step at a time and see if that helps. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
All right. I know my internet looks like it's acting really weird, so hopefully you guys can still
these
hear
circles
me.
under my eyes, and then I have the thyroid. I don't. Yeah. Oh yeah. But yes.
Yeah. So let's you do that. I'll follow up. Make sure you're doing it.
Okay.
If you live closer, I'd come over.
Oh, overnight or every day.
Right. So hopefully this was helpful for you guys. I do want to talk a little bit more about sleep. But I think next week I'll do a different topic and then maybe come back to it. I don't want to bore people about sleep, but it is so important. You don't realize how important it is until you're not getting it. And then sometimes you're just like, oh my gosh, you don't even know where to start. So it does. Sleep is just it controls our whole body, everything.
Yep.
Yeah.
It does.
It does. So good. So what I'm going to do is, this is being recorded. The replay will be posted in the page. So feel free to watch it again and get some more ideas or make some comments underneath it. But yeah, thanks for
I'm going to get some magnesium.
Yes, do it. It really does help.
My mom used I used to have it for her.
Yes, sometimes if you have like back spasms or muscle, whatever, it's going to help with that too. Yeah, it'll help.
My feet from all of my walking, and I'm on my feet all day at work. So sometimes my feet and my legs will cramp up.
Right. That'll help. The magnesium will help. Honestly, I take it and it's amazing.
Like how much?
Just natural stuff,
How much of that do you kind of take, or are there different?
It's really, there's really just is it 10 milligram? I have to run and look, but when I post this underneath the event, I'll put what I take, and then you guys will have a guide.
Sounds good. Yeah, I have a calcium with magnesium and zinc in it that I take every day, but it's a little bit of magnesium, and I know we're probably all very deficient in it. So it's not going to hurt by taking extra magnesium.
No, honestly, magnesium is not going to hurt. You have to be careful with your B vitamins, taking too much of those, because that goes through the liver, but the magnesium is't going to hurt at all. You guys will be good with that. So, but I'll post what I take. I just have to go take a look at it, but.
Okay.
All right, guys, you have a great rest of your night.
You too.
All right. Bye-bye. Nice to see you.
You as well.
Yeah. Bye-bye.
Bye.